Hi guys, I'm Radhika. Welcome back to my YouTube channel DataZard. And today I am back with an interesting challenge which is around isotype visualization. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. For this week, we are at 2021 week 24 challenge and we are going to be creating this isotype visual. Now, what is the isotype visual? So there are two parts to this kind of a visual. First is a visual indicator or an icon. Like for this one, because these were Nobel Prizes, so we had a ribbon icon. Similarly, if there is, like we are talking about gender, then we can do male and female icons as well. So it has an icon. And then the second part is we represent this visual using multiples of the quantitative data. So like every ribbon here, it represents 10 of such units. So 10 laureates are represented by each symbol. So it combines the icon with the multiples of those icons. Now let us dive into our Power BI report to get started. Once the data will load, our Power Query editor will open up, and then we just have to go to laureates.nobel prizes. This we need to expand. So when you do expand to new rows, it's gonna expand, and then we just have to select which columns we need from these records. So we just want the category field, and I'll click on OK. Once I click on OK, I will see this laureates Nobel Prize category column. And in this records, we're just going to select EN, which is for English, and click on OK. So this will help us in getting the category column, which will be required in creating our visual. Now that this is done, I'm not going to make any other transformations and I will just click on close and apply. I forgot to rename my table in Power Query Editor, so I will just rename the table here as laureates. So now we have to create that visual, and for that we will need to import Infographic Designer. So I'll click on these three dots and go to Get More Visuals and search for Infographic Designer. And I will add this visual in my Power BI desktop. To do that, I will just click on Add. Now I also need a few measures, so I will just create them in a separate table. So for that, I'll click on Enter Data and call this table Key Measures. So the first measure that I need is counting the total number of laureates. So I will call this total laureates, which will be equal to distinct count of either the full name or ID. So I'll just use ID. Another measure that we need is distinct count of the women so that we can figure out what is the percentage of women in laureates. So for that, I will do women laureates, which will be equal to, because we have to change the context, so I will use a calculate function. We need to find the total number of laureates, but only where the gender is female. And now we need to create another measure, which is counting the percentage of women, which will be percent of women laureates, which is simply dividing the women laureates count by the total count. There is another measure that will be required for our smart narrative, so I'm going to create it right away, which is counting the number of laureates for which we do not know their gender. So I will call this unknown gender laureates, and that will be equal to calculate. We need to count the number of laureates, so total laureates, and where the gender is blank, so we have a is blank function, so I'm going to use that. So is blank, and then I'm just going to close off the bracket. So now let us start creating the visual, getting the infographic designer. And in here, in category, we will choose category, the column that we expanded from a list. For measures, we will need two measures. First is the total laureates measure, and then percentage of women laureates measure. Now this is created as a column chart. We need this as a bar chart. So I will go to formatting pane, and in chart, I will treat this as a bar chart. And we don't want the grid lines, so turning off grid lines. We don't want the title, so I'll turn off the title. And now the rest of the formatting will be done via in this visual itself. So I will click on this edit mark, And first, let us choose the shape. So for shape, I will go to Biz and Tech and choose this ribbon. We want multiple units, so I will turn on multiple units. And in unit counts by, we need amount and row. For amount per unit, it is already mentioned in the challenge that we need to give 10 amount per unit. So I'm putting 10 here. For fill percent, we want this as per the percent of women laureates. And because our women laureate percent of women laureates is a percentage, so our max value should be 1. Like it's a percent, but I've not converted into 100%. It's still a decimal value. So I'm using max value as 1. And now we just have to change the color. So value color, turning it on and choosing a bright red color. I will copy this. And then for non-existent value, I will choose a gray color, which is somewhat like this. I need to place a text box at the top. So I'll go to insert and text box. I have just copy pasted the text here, and now I will just format this quickly. And the last thing that we need to do for challenge is create a smart narrative. So for that, we will again need a text box. Because we have not included the award year data, which is why I am going to just write this down manually. So Marie Curie was the first woman to win a Nobel Prize in 1903. And for the second one, I will use a smart narrative. So it says out of, now we need to get the total number of laureates. So for that, I will go to value. So total laureates and click on save. Out of 992, which is the total number of laureates, only now we need to get the total count of women. So again, clicking on value and women laureates, which is 64. Again, the data will not match because this API has latest like updated data, which might be different from what it was 2 years back. And then we will just complete the statement. 64 women have been awarded the prize to date, some of them multiple times. Note, now we need to give the viewers an idea of what is the total number of recipients for which we do not know the gender of. So there are, now to get the count, we will again go to value and then we will do unknown gender laureates, and that will be 27 whose gender is unknown. And then we're just going to format this. So I will put this as 14. And this is how the final visual looks like. I hope you have learned something new from this one. If you like the content, then please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This really means the world to me. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in my next one.